And here we are. Hi, I'm Kathleen Brown Ramsperger, and I'm an author, coach, and teacher. You can find me at shoresofourSouls.com or ground1coaching.com. I decided to do a few Facebook Lives to launch some books that I love during COVID. And now bookshops and libraries are starting to open, and I've gotten lots of interest, and it is my great pleasure to connect writers and readers. And that's why I and the author that is featured today are here to connect with you. I also want to connect and introduce Kaylee Mullis again. She'll be assisting with our Q&A today, so question and comment away. We'll stay till we get them answered, and if the live ends before that, you can be assured that either Judith or I will come back and do it, not orally, but write our responses. So now on to the book discussion. I'd like to introduce you to Judith B. Pinkard. Judy has always been an avid reader. She's also an amazingly resilient woman with an amazing, miraculous story to tell. It's a blessing to all of us that she has done this, as her love of reading transformed into a love of writing. When she's not reading and writing, she's spending time with her very large family in Mississippi. Judy's published by Touchpoint, my publisher, and all authors I'm interviewing this month are. They've got an amazing array of wonderful people and great writers there. Thank you, Judy, for being here with me to tell us about your story and your book today. Would you like to show your cover and say anything before I tell the listeners what the book's about? Uh-oh.
Sure, Kathy. Thank you for having me and doing this for me. I appreciate it so much.
It's an honor.
Our book is Broken Pieces, and this is the cover. And
I'm going to tell you about it now. So Broken Pieces, I think, is incredibly touching. It's also a miraculous story. The setting is a cold, dreary Christmas Eve. That's the last thing we want, is a cold, dreary Christmas Eve. And it's night when a series of choices made by different people transform the course of their lives, especially the author, Judy. It transformed her life, and she was just a baby at the time. It also transformed the lives of her parents. This is a book that you wouldn't believe if you didn't know it was true. It is written as fiction because in the first third or so, Judy's a baby, and so I'm certain that it's accurate, but she's had to fictionalize it. It's a book about devastating tragedy, devastating consequences, overcoming horrific odds. It's about addiction and mental health, which are two of my causes, because I've had a lot of both in my family, and how families have and can deal with both. It's mainly about surviving the storms of life and having resilience and having forgiveness. Judy doesn't believe anything happens by chance. She believes there's a reason for everything, that there's a purpose for everything. I do too. And I love this quote from her. We may have immediate knowledge of why something happened. Other times our understanding may be delayed, or we may never know the reason, I say, until we get to heaven. But there is always a reason. I always know that every choice we make carries consequences of some sort, some good, some bad. Yes, choices determine our future, be it our parents' choices, choices of other people connected to us, or our own choices. So I I'm going to read a little bit from the book, and then Judy's going to answer your questions. So the book begins with a storm, which can make the author remember back to an earlier storm in her life. Okay, I need to put on glasses. And once the storm is over, you won't remember how you made it through, how you managed to survive. You won't even be sure whether the storm is really over. But one thing is certain, when you come out of the storm, you won't be the same person who walked in. That's what this storm's all about. So that is a quote that begins Judy's first chapter by Haruki Murakami, not Murakami. The rest is all Judy. I have a story to tell. It is unbelievable, yet true. A story that can make people rethink their belief system. It is a story that needs to be told, a tragic yet redeeming story. My beginning started like this storm. Even from conception, it was one of those decisions or choices that shapes lives. It happened somewhere, sometime in February 1950. Choices. Life is all about choices. Some are other people's and some yours, but a choice is always involved. The wrong choice can change the course of your life forever. Like tornadoes, the wrong choice may occur unexpectedly and be devastating. That sometimes we don't even know the choice. This is me talking now. Sometimes we don't even know the choices that we're making a choice. Like every moment seems like it's a choice. Okay, then a few words from chapter 2. Helen was looking down at Judy. Helen was Judy's mother, with eyes only a mother can have for her newborn, when she heard Perry say, "I can't hold it in the road, Haas." They're driving home from the hospital on an icy Christmas Eve. The next moments were terrifying for everyone in the car. The car left the road as it hit a patch of ice in an area that locals called Dead Man's Curve. As the car flipped, the sound of breaking glass, shrieking metal, and shrilling screams echoed in the snowy night. As the car continued to flip, its occupants sailed about like rag dolls, hitting the roof, the doors, and the windows. Rolling 16 times, the car's occupants spewed from the vehicle into the dark night. And then from a subsequent chapter, but I promise that I'm not giving that much away because there's a surprise in every chapter. At the station, the police were busy following up on a report that a baby may have been in the car accident at Dead Man's Curve in Picayune the night before. After checking both hospitals and finding no admittance reported, Officer Tim Gunn questioned all involved in the accident, including the medical staff. No one had seen a baby at the scene of the accident. With the weather still bad, Officer Gunn knew that time was of the essence. If the baby's even still alive, too much time has passed, and being out in the open, exposed in these elements, any adult would freeze to death, much less a baby. Please, Lord, he prayed, let this baby be alive. And the baby's alive, but we won't find out how.
Definitely.
So here is one of the amazing reviews, and then we're going to go to Q&A. Sometimes an author sits down to write a book, and it seems like it was written just for you, just to touch your soul. This was that book for me. Mental illness is not something a lot of people understand. Boy, that's true. People think they could be better if they just tried. Unfortunately, that does not work for everyone. Little Judy struggled from the day she was born with her mother's illness. Whether it was hiding it or ignoring it, Judy struggled. Judy's story reaches into the soul and pulls empathy and love from deep inside you. Sometimes the broken pieces of the world are how you build a stronger you. Kind of says it all. It's a beautiful review. And I just took part of that review, I think. I don't think I took the whole thing. So I loved this book. I think that even if you've healed from a childhood like yours, because my childhood was different but similar, there were still healing parts of the book for me. And I had to pinch myself sometimes that it was based on reality, real events. I've just finished teaching a memoir class, and I know this isn't strict memoir, but my students told me that the toughest part of writing was digging deep and telling your truth, whether it's fictionalized or not. Even though this is a novel, can you talk about the courage it takes to tell your story, especially with such authenticity, Judy?
Yes. Actually, it's the hardest thing I've ever done. I've known I needed to write the book. I've been told all my life I had a story to tell. I needed to share it with the world. I was afraid until I was 68 when I wrote the book. Mainly, I didn't know how to portray the book where it would not hurt others, but tell the truth. And I wanted to tell each character and how it affected them as well as me. And it was really emotional. I went into a depression afterwards because I had to go into the character of my mother, things that she went through, and then my dad. And of course, I was a child, but then how later it affected me. And I had to recall things that I had pushed way back in my memory. And the Lord allowed me so much, but I think He still held back so much because it was really, really hard. You want to tell the truth. The only thing fiction in my book are some of the names and some of the conversation. All of the events are true. And, a lot of people say, gosh, how did you survive that and write about it? And it was my normal. I didn't know any different. So until I got out of the situation, it was just what I knew. And I waited, and another reason was I was afraid I might not be able to hold people's interest to tell the story. And I wanted to come across with compassion and love for my mother and my father, and also bring up why they did things they did. It was out of disease and the times. People didn't know then things that they know now. And
it's heartbreaking.
It was hard.
It's heartbreaking, the reason it happened. I'm not going to give the reason away, but it happened. It's happening all over the country now, and I think it's going to help a lot of people. Thank you for being brave, and thank you for telling the story so well.
Well, thank you. I said when I wrote the book, I really felt like it was meant to be. And the words, I had to do some research, and I had to check with some family because I was a baby, and I wanted to tell the story, but I also didn't want to tell it while people were alive that could be hurt by it, because I wanted, I really didn't want them to read it and say, oh, I didn't know I don't even remember that, and so I just wanted to be compassionate about it, and I wanted to divide the disease from the person. And if I said, if only one person, comes out with something from it, then it was worth writing.
I understand that. Although the times I've never written anything like this about my family, and like I said, my story is very different. But my mother, when she read my very first novel, which I wrote in 1980, she didn't recognize herself. So that's the other part of it. That's really cool. It was a novel. It was. So I think that we can do it with a peaceful heart sometimes. That's what I've experienced, at least. So you knew you had wanted to write this book for a long time, and you talked about the fear you had, and you also have told me that you wanted to leave an impression on the reader, hoping to relate to them personally, and I think that you did that as well. You also talked a little bit, and I know you have a sequel, which I'm very excited about, but you did talk a little bit about how we pick up the broken pieces and move on. Can you go into that in a little more depth here? How do we pick up the broken pieces in our life? When people say, how do you deal with what happened to you?
I've had a lot of people say that no. Well, first of all, let me say this. Most of the people that knew me did not know my story. They knew the beginning of my story, the miraculous part of the story, but I had never shared any of the other with them. And they were shocked that I'd held it inside for so long and never shared it with anyone. But
so
my idea
typical
was
of a child in your situation. Very, very normal behavior.
You know, and my choice is, what choice do you have but to pick up the pieces? I mean, you just do with what you're given, and luckily the Lord placed good people in my life to help me, and that He was with me all along. If anybody will read the book, they'll realize that there were times when I was alone physically, but I knew I wasn't alone. And so, you know, in my second book, I've got even more broken pieces as adult I go through. But you just deal with it. You know, you come what may. And, you know, there's other people that, when people say, why, you know, do you ever wonder why you? I say, well, why not me? There's other people that have suffered much more. And I really believe that if everybody would open up their hearts and their lives and share, we would find that a lot of people are carrying a lot of baggage, and the secrets is what hurts people, but not everybody can do it.
Secrets, yeah. My first novel was about how secrets totally destroyed a relationship, and it can destroy us too. So
True.
Yeah. So Kaylee, do we have any questions, any comments? I think it's a good time for a quick break.
We do. Hi, everybody. It's good to be back. So we have a few different comments here. So we have just a few hellos from Kathleen Rogers, who says hi, Kathy, and Shanessa says hi, Kathy and Judy. And we have two different questions. So we have one from Tatiana Ramzoff. She's wondering, who determines the cover of your book, Judy?
That's kind of a funny story. The publisher first did a book, and I did cover that I didn't really like. When I was given my publishing options, I wrote what I wanted it to be. I had it in my mind that I wanted it to be half of a beautiful woman's face with a brown eye, with a tear falling in broken glass. That was my idea. That is not the first option I was given, but I went back to that. My mother had beautiful brown eyes. If you read the book, you'll know the significance of that. And I just thought that portrayed in my heart what I wanted the book to reveal to the public.
It is a process, isn't it? Everything's a process when you're publishing a book, but the cover is so important, and I think it takes almost the most time.
Well, I mean, and I don't know where I got this clear vision from, but I had a harder time deciding on the title than I did the book, but I mean, the cover. But I was very pleased after the second go around with the cover.
It's a gorgeous cover and it tells the story so well. So Kaylee, others?
Yes.
Other questions?
Yes, we have one from Noel Puglisi. So she's wondering, why do you think you were chosen to survive Dead Man's Curve?
To tell the story.
She asked, to tell the story. Sorry, yes, that's your answer. Okay.
Yeah, to tell the story and tell, you know, the miracle of the story that needed to be told. It's been told, I'm sure, at Christmas time for anybody that was involved for years, and to also tell what happened afterwards, and to give some hope and light to people that may go through the same thing or say, oh, that happened to me, and realize that they're not alone.
I love it that's your answer. Soul purpose. Really cool.
Mm-hmm. So we have another question from Kathleen Rogers. She says secrets. When we were talking about secrets, she agrees with that. So she's wondering, how do you give yourself permission to write your story over any fear of recrimination or rejection from those closest to you?
Well, you know, that was kind of hard. My mother and my father had already passed on, and I went to both sides of my family and tried to get information. I got more information from my dad's side than I did my mother's side until after the book came out. But I just you have to weigh whether the story is strong enough and important enough to you, and you have the passion to tell it, and that you feel like you're supposed to tell it, that overrides the repercussions you might receive.
Okay, we're going to go back to my questions for a few minutes, and we'll end with the final comments from Facebook. So thank you, Kaylee, and thanks for those great answers, Judy. So you told me a story about how you knew when your book was a success and somebody came up to you at a book signing. Do you remember that story? And would you tell it?
Oh yes. When I wrote the book, I thought if just one person can get anything out of this, I feel like it's a success. Because I know first-time authors don't make money. If that was the issue, I'd have never wrote the book. But I was at a book signing in Texas, and this girl came to the book signing, and she was kind of far back in line, and she just kept looking at me. And I kept looking at her, and she was holding my book, and I thought, she acts like I'm supposed to know her. So I just went over there, and I said, do I know you? And she says, no, we've never met. But she said, it's just, when I knew you were going to be here, I just had to come, because she said, a funny thing happened. She said, I'm not one of your friends on Facebook, but your book came across. And she said, I saw the cover, and I said, I want to read that book. And so she said she ordered the book. She said then she saw I was coming to Freeport, which is where she lived, and she said, I'm going to go see her. She read the book in one night. She came in, she was crying, and she said, I just want to tell you, your book meant so much to me. And of course, then I started crying. And I said, how do you mean? And she said, well, my brother has an addiction and has had for years, and it's affected me and our whole family. And she said, years ago, I tried to write. And she said, I got so frustrated, I just finally threw the computer aside and said, forget it. And she said, but I want to tell you, you gave me my voice back. And she just released her book this year. So that just made, that thrilled me.
It's what every author wants.
And she did tell me, she said, if my book can touch one person like your book touched me, I'll be satisfied. So that made it all for me. That made the whole trip worth everything.
I'm absolutely certain. And I think that's what every author wants to hear. Not every author. People who have a story want to hear that they've carried around with them and know it will change people and even change the world. And you have every reason to be satisfied with this book in that way. It's going to change lives, Judy.
Thank you.
So about it, would it be a spoiler to ask you how your relationships went with your parents in a not in depth, but you reconnected, yes?
It won't really be a spoiler. It will be in the second book. I did reconnect with. I never lost touch with either one of them. I was just protected more from visitations and things that might upset me. When I became an adult and I got married, I tried to have a more adult relationship with my mother. And it started out pretty well, and it lasted for a while, but then it didn't end too well.
Mm-hmm.
My dad, I've always had a pretty decent relationship with him, but the last, I'd say, 30 years were wonderful. We grew closer and closer, and he opened up and talked. He had never talked much to me about my mom or the wreck, and he did, have some regrets about things, and that made me feel good to hear, but and my mom and my dad loved each other till the day they died. I mean, they couldn't live together, and it probably wouldn't be a good thing for them to live together because they were both volatile when it came to certain things.
Mm-hmm.
But my mom called him not long before she passed, and he was going to go see her, but he didn't make it in time. And I think I put in my book, I can't remember what I put in each book, but when he kept a 8x10 picture of her in his room up until he died. He married several times, but she always had a picture in the room. So
it was obvious from your book how much they loved each other.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. So one final question before you tell us where we can find your book, and also we come back to Kaylee for the rest of everybody else's questions. Your book's full of seasons and storms too, but can you speak to why they're an important theme in your writing? I think it might go further than that.
Well, just like we have seasons that we live through every year, we do have seasons of our life. I mean, we have our childhood, we have our birth and our childhood and our teenage years, and each part of our life has got a season, and different things happen. Some of them are pretty good spring, summer-like, and some of them are pretty bad winter, and it's just a way that we implemented it into the book because it was different seasons of my life, and I've got more seasons to come to write about that are going to be in the next book.
It worked really well, though. I enjoyed that organizational feature, and I think most readers will.
I've heard a lot of people say that they liked the quotes I put at the beginning of each chapter, that it kind of let them know kind of what might be coming next. And that was kind of a hard thing to do, to find exactly what I wanted, quote I wanted. But I think that turned out pretty well too.
Yeah, it did. And you're the third author that has put quotes at the beginning of chapters, and it's given me inspiration, not with the sequel, because the first book didn't have a quote in every chapter, but that's the way I'd originally written it. So maybe that's how I find authors. That we love to put quotes in. Kaylee, can we have the the readers' questions that are left, and then I'll share my teabag wisdom, and Judy can say where we can find her in her book.
Absolutely. So we have just a few more questions left here. So we have one from Shanessa. She's asking, what's your next book about, Judy?
The next book, it's a continuation of this book, where I ended up, who I ended up with, and how my life came from there till I'm hoping to go to present day.
You think there's a third book?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, there is a third book, but not this. It's going to be a totally fiction book. It's going to be a fun book.
Oh, good.
I've already got an idea for it. I have an idea for it. It won't be so heavy. It's so having to deal so much with my emotions.
Yeah. We have another from Tatiana Ramzoff. She's asking, do you feel lighter and breathe better with the weight of your secrets off your shoulders?
I would say so. I really don't know how to answer that. I feel more blessed because people have given me insight into how different things that I said had helped them, and it touched different people with different things. You know, some people it was the mental illness part, some people it was the forgiveness part. I had people call and say, you know, I struggle with that. I don't know how you did it, and it's just, it opened up a world to me to be able to help others, which is what I was hoping would come from it. I guess I do feel lighter. I just wanted to make sure I didn't hurt anybody in the process. That was my main goal.
That makes sense.
You've helped a lot of people in the process too. Kaylee, sorry, I interrupted.
No, that's all right. And we have one final question, and we have a few comments, but I'll start with the last question. It's from Noel Puglisi, and she's asking, what's your favorite quote in your story and why?
Ooh, I have so many. I believe it's mainly the choices, because we don't realize really how our life is determined by choices. Something that you think may not be a very big deal can turn out to change your whole life, like it did. If she read my book, she knows what I'm talking about. The very first part of the book, a choice changed the lives of 5 people. One quick choice, and especially me and my parents, we were more affected than anyone. And the choice was a simple choice. People make it every day. So I don't want to give it away, but
no, don't do that.
In my own life,
I want her to read it.
yeah. In my own life, you know, I have found different choices. Life's, I don't think, and like she said earlier, I don't believe anything happens that doesn't have a reason for happening. And I like that quote too. So my daughter says, my mom always says everything happens for a reason. So I instilled that into her when she was real young.
That's fantastic. I did the same with my kids. Not everybody believes that though. So I always get excited when I find someone who does.
Oh, I do. I mean, I believe everything happens for a reason. And I've seen them come to pass. found out sometimes what the reasons are, and I feel like if I don't find out now, I'll find out on the other side.
Right.
Of
So
course, everybody has their own opinion.
right. So any final comments, Kaylee?
Yes, we just have a hello from across the pond and a belated greetings from Marilyn Rice.
Hi, Marilyn.
And to conclude, Kathleen Rogers again says, incredible story, Judy. So those are all the comments that we have. And I would agree. I echo those sentiments.
We all do. Thank you so much. Thank you, Kaylee. And thank you, everybody that commented. It's getting really, really lively here, this discussion, and it's making me happy. I think this was absolutely a great interview, Judy. I'm so pleased and honored to have you. And why don't you tell people where they can find your book? Is it available in bookstores in addition to online or online?
Online through Amazon. And I will tell you to look by author because there's so many that have got broken pieces in them. If you look by Judith B. Pinkard, you'll find it quicker. And locally, I live in Kosciuszko, Mississippi, and we have a store here, River Bridge, that has some on hand locally.
Fantastic. Again, my thanks. And then I always save this as a surprise because it's always a surprise for me. My tea bag wisdom, it's amazing. This is like another little miracle. You're not even going to believe it. I gasped and then I laughed. Can you read it? I'll read it if you can.
No, I can't read it.
It says, "You are the sky. The rest is just weather."
Oh,
Another quote for you. Another quote for you. That describes your book perfectly to me and you, Judy. So thank you so much for being on with us. Thank you for our new friendship. And any final words?
I just want to thank everyone that came in and commented and asked questions. And I hope I answered them to your satisfaction. And I'm just so happy, Kathy, that you're doing this. And you gave my book some exposure. And I've just really enjoyed getting to know you.
It's my pleasure. It's my pleasure, Judy. And to everybody else that reads and writes. And I am Kathy Ramsperger at shoresofoursouls.com. Join us here every Thursday afternoon, just about, and you'll find us here talking about books. Everybody take care. Bye. Thank you, Judy. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.